Africa is widely considered the cradle of humanity, with some of the oldest evidence of human ancestors found on the continent. The human evolutionary lineage, including the famous discoveries of Australopithecus afarensis in Ethiopia and Homo habilis in Tanzania, suggests that Africa was instrumental in the development of early human species. These early hominids eventually evolved into modern humans, Homo sapiens. Ancient Africa saw the rise of great civilizations, such as ancient Egypt, Kush, Aksum, and Carthage. Ancient Egypt, in particular, is known for its monumental architecture, advanced technology, and sophisticated religious beliefs. The construction of the pyramids, the development of hieroglyphic writing, and the worship of numerous deities are all significant aspects of ancient Egyptian civilization. The Kingdom of Kush, located in present-day Sudan, was a powerful state that flourished alongside and at times ruled over Egypt. In East Africa, the Kingdom of Aksum, also known as Aksum, prospered as a major trading empire, with trade links stretching as far as the Roman Empire and India. The city of Aksum served as a significant trading hub and a center of Christianity in the region. Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia, was a powerful naval and mercantile power in the Mediterranean region, known for its conflicts with the Roman Republic. The medieval period in Africa was marked by the rise of several powerful empires and kingdoms. These included the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire in West Africa, and the Swahili city-states along the East African coast. These states thrived on trade, particularly in gold, salt, and other valuable commodities, and often developed advanced political systems, art, and architecture. The Mali Empire, under rulers like Mansa Musa, became renowned for its great wealth and influence, particularly through the trans-Saharan trade routes. Timbuktu, a city in Mali, emerged as a prominent center of Islamic scholarship and learning during this period. In East Africa, the Swahili city-states, such as Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar, played a key role in facilitating trade between the East African coast and the Arabian Peninsula. The colonial period in Africa began in the late 19th century with the Scramble for Africa, where European powers carved up the continent into colonies and spheres of influence. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 formalized this process and divided Africa among European nations without regard for existing ethnic or cultural boundaries. The effects of colonization were varied and often devastating for many African societies. Colonial powers imposed new political boundaries that disregarded existing tribal and ethnic divisions, leading to conflicts and instability in the post-colonial period. Economic exploitation, forced labor, and cultural suppression were common features of colonial rule. In the mid-20th century, African countries began to gain independence from colonial rule. Leaders such as Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, and Nelson Mandela of South Africa played significant roles in the fight against colonialism and the establishment of independent nations. The post-colonial era in Africa was marked by struggles for political stability, economic development, and social progress. Many African nations faced challenges such as corruption, ethnic conflict, poverty, and authoritarian rule. Several countries experienced civil wars, coups, and other forms of political instability in the decades following independence. In recent years, Africa has seen significant economic growth and development in many regions. Countries such as Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and Ethiopia have emerged as key players in the global economy. The rise of telecommunications, technology, and urbanization has transformed many African cities and societies. However, Africa continues to face numerous challenges, including poverty, disease, political instability, and environmental degradation. Issues such as climate change, terrorism, and refugee crises also pose significant threats to the continent's stability and progress. Nevertheless, African nations are working towards addressing these challenges through initiatives such as the African Union and regional economic communities. One of the defining features of Africa is its incredible cultural diversity. The continent is home to thousands of distinct ethnic groups, each with its languages, traditions, beliefs, and artistic expressions. From the Berbers of North Africa to the Maasai of East Africa and the Yoruba of West Africa, the cultural richness of the continent is vast and varied. Traditional African art, music, dance, and storytelling have played crucial roles in preserving and transmitting cultural heritage across generations. African art, in its various forms such as masks, sculptures, textiles, and pottery, often reflects a deep connection to nature, spirituality, and community. Music and dance traditions are integral parts of social events, ceremonies, and rituals, showcasing the vibrant and dynamic cultural life of the continent. One of the darkest chapters in Africa's history is the transatlantic slave trade. For over 4 centuries, millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homelands and transported to the Americas to work on plantations and in other industries. The slave trade had devastating effects on African societies, leading to depopulation, social disruption, and economic exploitation. The legacy of the transatlantic slave trade continues to impact African diaspora communities around the world today. Movements for reparations, recognition of historical injustices, and efforts to preserve cultural heritage among diaspora populations are ongoing, highlighting the need to address the lasting effects of this tragic period in history. The legacy of colonialism in Africa continues to influence the political, economic, and social landscapes of many countries on the continent. Colonial powers imposed systems of governance, education, and economy that often favored their own interests at the expense of indigenous populations. The extraction of natural resources, introduction of cash crops, and establishment of extractive industries left many African countries economically dependent and vulnerable to external pressures. The scramble for Africa resulted in the arbitrary drawing of borders that divided ethnic groups and created tensions that persist to this day. The impact of colonial-era policies on issues such as land rights, citizenship, and cultural identity has led to conflicts and challenges in post-colonial Africa. Efforts to decolonize institutions, revise historical narratives, and promote indigenous knowledge systems are ongoing as African nations seek to reclaim their histories and shape their futures. In response to the challenges of colonialism and imperialism, Pan-Africanism emerged as a powerful ideology and movement advocating for African unity, solidarity, and self-determination. Visionaries such as Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Kwame Nkrumah championed Pan-African ideals of liberation, anti-colonialism, and African pride. The establishment of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, in 1963 and its successor, the African Union, AU, reflected the Pan-African vision of a united Africa working towards common goals of peace, development, and prosperity. Pan-Africanism continues to influence African politics, culture, and identity, inspiring movements for integration, cooperation, and solidarity among African nations and peoples. Africa today faces a range of pressing challenges, including poverty, inequality, political instability, corruption, environmental degradation, and health crises. The COVID-19 pandemic, for example, has highlighted the vulnerabilities of African healthcare systems and economies, emphasizing the need for greater investments in public health, education, and social welfare. At the same time, Africa is a continent of immense potential and opportunity. With a young, growing population, abundant natural resources, and a rapidly expanding digital economy, Africa is poised for significant economic and social development in the coming decades. Initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, aim to boost intra-African trade, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth across the continent. In the post-independence era, Africa witnessed a wave of political movements and struggles for self-determination, democracy, and human rights. Many African countries experienced transitions from colonial rule to independent nation-states, often marked by challenges such as ethnic tensions, authoritarian regimes, and civil conflicts. Leaders like Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Patrice Lumumba of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Nelson Mandela of South Africa played pivotal roles in shaping the political landscape of the continent. The struggle against apartheid in South Africa, a system of racial segregation and oppression, became a global symbol of resistance to injustice. The eventual dismantling of apartheid in the early 1990s and the election of Nelson Mandela as South Africa's first black president marked a significant triumph for democracy and equality in Africa and the world. Africa is known for its vast reserves of natural resources, including minerals, oil, gas, and agricultural lands. However, the exploitation of these resources has often led to challenges such as environmental degradation, resource conflicts, and economic inequality. The concept of the resource curse, where resource-rich countries experience economic stagnation and political instability due to mismanagement and corruption, has been a recurring issue in many African nations. Efforts to promote sustainable development and responsible resource management have gained traction in recent years, with initiatives such as the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI, seeking to ensure transparency and accountability in the extractive sector. Investment in renewable energy, agriculture, and other sustainable industries is also seen as key to unlocking Africa's potential for long-term growth and prosperity. Africa has one of the youngest populations in the world, with a large percentage of people under the age of 25. This demographic trend presents both opportunities and challenges for the continent. Young Africans are increasingly driving social and technological innovation, entrepreneurship, and creative industries, contributing to a dynamic and vibrant cultural scene. The rise of mobile technology, internet connectivity, and digital entrepreneurship has transformed the way Africans interact, communicate, and do business. From mobile banking platforms like M-Pesa in Kenya to e-commerce ventures in Nigeria and tech hubs in cities like Lagos and Nairobi, African youth are at the forefront of shaping the continent's digital future. Africa is particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, including droughts, floods, desertification, and rising sea levels. These environmental challenges pose significant risks to agriculture, water resources, biodiversity, and human settlements across the continent. Initiatives such as the Great Green Wall Project, which aims to combat desertification in the Sahel region, demonstrate African nations' commitment to sustainable development and environmental stewardship. Adaptation and mitigation strategies, such as renewable energy deployment, conservation efforts, and climate-resilient agriculture, are crucial for building climate resilience and ensuring the well-being of African populations. International cooperation and partnerships, including the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and the Paris Agreement, play important roles in addressing global climate challenges and supporting African nations in their climate action efforts. As Africa continues its journey towards progress and prosperity, key challenges and opportunities lie ahead. Issues such as infrastructure development, education, healthcare, gender equality, and good governance will shape Africa's future trajectory and determine its ability to achieve sustainable development goals. Investments in human capital, innovation, and inclusive growth are essential for unlocking Africa's full potential and ensuring a better quality of life for all its people. By embracing its rich history, cultural diversity, and spirit of resilience, Africa can forge a path towards a brighter and more sustainable future. Through collaboration, innovation, and shared values of justice, equality, and solidarity, African nations can overcome obstacles, build inclusive societies, and realize the vision of a prosperous and peaceful continent for generations to come. The colonization of Africa by European powers in the 19th century had far-reaching consequences for the continent. European countries carved up Africa through the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, resulting in the artificial borders that often disregarded ethnic, linguistic, and cultural divisions. The imposition of colonial rule led to the exploitation of Africa's resources, forced labor, and the suppression of local institutions and identities. Stay tuned for more. We will be right back. Colonialism also engendered resistance movements and independence struggles across Africa. Visionary leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, and Ahmed Sékou Touré of Guinea championed the cause of self-determination and liberation from colonial domination. The wave of independence movements in the 1950s and 1960s eventually led to the decolonization of Africa, with many countries gaining independence and forming new nation-states. The idea of Pan-Africanism, which advocates for unity, solidarity, and collaboration among African nations and peoples, has been a powerful force in shaping Africa's history. Visionaries like Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Kwame Nkrumah promoted the concept of African unity and solidarity as a means to overcome colonialism, racism, and economic exploitation. Organizations like the African Union, AU, and its predecessor, the Organization of African Unity, OAU, have played key roles in promoting Pan-African cooperation, peace, and development. The AU's Agenda 2063, a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the continent, aims to harness Africa's resources and potential for the collective benefit of its people. Africa has experienced various conflicts and crises, including civil wars, ethnic tensions, and political instability. Issues such as resource competition, governance failures, poverty, and external interventions have contributed to conflicts in countries like Sudan, Somalia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. Conflict resolution and peacebuilding efforts, led by regional organizations like the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and the African Union, have been instrumental in mediating disputes and promoting stability. Initiatives such as the African Peace and Security Architecture, APSA, and peacekeeping missions like the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, demonstrate Africa's commitment to resolving conflicts and building a peaceful future for its people. Investing in conflict prevention, dialogue, and institutions of governance are essential for addressing root causes of conflict and fostering sustainable peace. Promoting human rights, democracy, and social justice are central to Africa's development agenda. The struggles against apartheid in South Africa, gender-based violence, discrimination against minorities, and child labor highlight the importance of upholding human dignity and equality for all Africans. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights, adopted by the OAU in 1981, serves as a framework for protecting and promoting human rights on the continent. Civil society organizations, activists, and advocates play vital roles in advancing human rights and social justice in Africa. Issues such as access to education, healthcare, clean water, and economic opportunities remain key challenges that require concerted efforts from governments, communities, and international partners. Empowering marginalized groups, promoting inclusion, and ensuring accountability are essential for fostering a just and equitable society in Africa. Africa's technological landscape is rapidly evolving, with innovations in mobile technology, fintech, agritech, and renewable energy driving economic growth and social change. Mobile money platforms like M-Pesa in Kenya and mobile banking services in other parts of the continent have revolutionized financial inclusion and expanded access to banking services for millions of Africans. Tech hubs and startup ecosystems in cities like Lagos, Nairobi, Cape Town, and Accra are hubs of creativity, entrepreneurship, and innovation. African innovators and entrepreneurs are designing solutions to local challenges, from healthcare and agriculture to education and transportation. Initiatives like the African Union's digital transformation strategy and partnerships with global tech companies are fueling Africa's digital revolution and positioning the continent as a hub of technological innovation and creativity. Africa's economic landscape is marked by vast natural resources, a youthful population, and growing entrepreneurial spirit. The continent has shown resilience amidst global challenges, with a rising middle class, increasing urbanization, and a growing consumer market. However, economic growth in Africa is still hindered by challenges such as infrastructure deficits, unemployment, corruption, and economic inequality. Diversifying economies beyond commodity dependence, promoting industrialization, investing in infrastructure, and enhancing agricultural productivity are crucial for unlocking Africa's economic potential. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, the world's largest free trade area, holds great promise for boosting intra-African trade, creating jobs, and fostering economic integration across the continent. Africa is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, with threats such as droughts, floods, desertification, and rising sea levels posing risks to livelihoods and ecosystems. Sustainable development practices, adaptation strategies, and renewable energy initiatives are critical for building climate resilience and mitigating environmental degradation. The Great Green Wall Initiative, a Pan-African project to combat desertification and land degradation in the Sahel region, exemplifies Africa's commitment to environmental sustainability. Investing in renewable energy sources like solar and wind power, promoting sustainable agriculture practices, and conserving biodiversity are essential for ensuring a greener, more sustainable future for Africa and the planet. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored the importance of resilient healthcare systems and robust pandemic preparedness in Africa. Despite facing challenges such as limited healthcare infrastructure, inadequate funding, and disparities in access to healthcare services, African countries have demonstrated resilience and innovation in responding to the pandemic. Initiatives like the Africa CDC, the COVAX Facility for Equitable Vaccine Distribution, and partnerships with global health organizations have been instrumental in supporting Africa's response to COVID-19. Strengthening healthcare systems, investing in healthcare workforce capacity, and advancing research and development in health innovation are key priorities for promoting health security and sustainable development in Africa. Africa's rich cultural heritage, diverse traditions, and artistic expressions are sources of pride and resilience for its people. Music, dance, literature, fashion, film, and cuisine from Africa are gaining global recognition and influencing popular culture worldwide. African artists, writers, musicians, and designers are shaping narratives, challenging stereotypes, and promoting cross-cultural dialogue and understanding. Harnessing Africa's soft power and cultural diplomacy can enhance the continent's global influence, drive economic growth in creative industries, and strengthen people-to-people connections. Platforms like the African Union's Africa Month celebrations, film festivals like FESPACO in Burkina Faso, and initiatives to preserve and promote cultural heritage contribute to showcasing Africa's diversity, creativity, and contributions to the world. Gender equality and women's empowerment are fundamental for achieving sustainable development and social justice in Africa. Despite progress in areas such as political representation and legal reforms, gender disparities persist in education, economic participation, healthcare, and decision-making roles. Empowering women and girls, combating gender-based violence, and promoting women's leadership are key priorities for advancing gender equality in Africa. Initiatives like the African Women Leaders Network, AWLN, and the African Union's Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Agenda 2063 aim to increase women's representation in leadership positions, enhance access to education and healthcare for women and girls, and address systemic barriers to gender equality. investing in women's entrepreneurship, legal protection of women's rights, and promoting gender-sensitive policies are critical for realizing the full potential of Africa's diverse and dynamic female population. Africa has one of the youngest populations globally, with a demographic dividend that presents both opportunities and challenges for the continent's development. Youth unemployment, inadequate educational opportunities, and limited access to quality healthcare and social services are key obstacles facing African youth. Empowering young people, investing in their education and skills development, and creating opportunities for entrepreneurship and innovation are essential for harnessing Africa's demographic dividend and driving economic growth. Initiatives like the African Union's African Youth Decade Plan of Action and the African Youth Innovation Fund support youth empowerment, leadership development, and entrepreneurship on the continent. Promoting digital literacy, encouraging creativity and innovation, and fostering youth participation in decision-making processes are crucial for unlocking the potential of Africa's young population as agents of change and progress. Promoting good governance, transparency, and accountability is essential for fostering sustainable development, building trust in institutions, and combating corruption in Africa. Weak governance systems, lack of rule of law, and corruption undermine public confidence, hinder economic growth, and perpetuate social inequalities in many African countries. Strengthening democratic institutions, upholding the principles of justice and accountability, and promoting ethical leadership are key priorities for advancing good governance in Africa. Initiatives like the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, and anti-corruption campaigns led by civil society organizations, media, and government agencies are instrumental in promoting transparency, accountability, and integrity in public and private sectors. Implementing effective anti-corruption measures, enforcing legal frameworks, and promoting citizen engagement in governance processes are essential for combating corruption and building resilient, responsive, and accountable institutions in Africa. Investing in infrastructure development, including transportation, energy, water, and digital connectivity, is crucial for driving economic growth, improving living standards, and enhancing regional integration in Africa. Despite progress in infrastructure projects such as roads, railways, ports, and energy facilities, infrastructure gaps remain a significant challenge for many African countries due to limited financing, regulatory bottlenecks, and capacity constraints. Initiatives like the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, and the African Development Bank's High Fives agenda prioritize infrastructure investments to bridge connectivity gaps, enhance trade facilitation, and promote sustainable development on the continent. Public-private partnerships, innovative financing mechanisms, and regional cooperation are key strategies for accelerating infrastructure development, boosting economic productivity, and improving quality of life for African populations. Promoting continental integration, fostering collaboration among African countries, and deepening partnerships with global stakeholders are vital for advancing Africa's development agenda and amplifying its voice on the global stage. Initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, the Single African Air Transport Market, SAM, and the African Union's engagement with regional blocs and international organizations aim to enhance inter-African trade, promote free movement of people and goods, and strengthen Africa's position in the global economy. Strategic partnerships with international actors, including multilateral institutions, development partners, and private sector stakeholders, play a crucial role in supporting Africa's development priorities, leveraging expertise and resources, and promoting sustainable development outcomes. Engaging in dialogue, negotiation, and collaboration at regional and global levels can foster mutual understanding, shared prosperity, and inclusive development that benefit Africa and its partners. Investing in education, skills training, and lifelong learning is essential for unlocking Africa's demographic dividend and building a competitive workforce for the future. Despite progress in expanding access to education, challenges such as quality, relevance, and inclusivity persist in many African countries. Promoting STEM education, vocational training, and digital literacy, as well as fostering innovation and entrepreneurship, are essential for equipping African youth with the skills and knowledge needed to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Public-private partnerships, investment in educational infrastructure, and prioritizing girls' education are critical for ensuring equitable and inclusive education systems that prepare Africa's youth for the opportunities and challenges of the 21st century. In conclusion, Africa's history is a testament to the resilience, creativity, and diversity of its peoples. By learning from the past, addressing present challenges, and shaping a future rooted in sustainability and shared prosperity, Africa can continue to inspire and lead the world towards a more equitable and harmonious future. The history of Africa is a story of resilience, creativity, and perseverance in the face of adversity. From ancient civilizations to modern nations, Africa's diverse peoples have shaped a rich tapestry of cultures, traditions, and experiences that continue to inspire and inform global society. By honoring the past, confronting historical injustices, and working towards a more inclusive and sustainable future, Africa and its people can build a brighter tomorrow for generations to come. We appreciate your support. Tune in for fresh episodes every week. Let's keep the conversation going. Join our community, subscribe, and grow with us.